My name is Sarah Hayes. I am the Portfolio Director for the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all here this morning to CCI's inaugural Internship Fair. For those of you that don't know, the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative is a state investment into making Virginia the premier place for cybersecurity education and research in the country and nay, the world. So we believe that we can do that with our focus on research with impact. So we believe that really cool, interesting, life-changing research in cybersecurity can make an impact economically, both through innovation and commercialization of new technologies. And of course, with equipping students of our wonderful Virginia schools with experiences in the workforce that make them more marketable and frankly, keep you in Virginia. So when you graduate, you contribute to our economy too. I also wanted to just highlight our website for further information is cyberinitiative.org. We also have partner institutions that lead some of our regional nodes that also have websites that are wonderful sources of information, particularly when it comes to internships. So if your school is located in one of our regional nodes, that might be a great source for learning about internships. In particular, too, I want to highlight is the Northern Virginia node, which is led by George Mason University, which is, as you can imagine, up here in the Northern Virginia region. Their website is cci-novanode.org. And another one that I'd like to highlight is one in Central Virginia that is led by Virginia Commonwealth University and UVA, and that is cci-cvn.org. So two great other resources that exist for you to learn more about internship opportunities that are specific to kind of that region. So if you're looking for something that's close to school or maybe closer to home, that might be a good resource for you as well. Now what I'd like to do is hand it over to our Executive Director, Luiz DaSilva. He joined us the Monday that Virginia went into quarantine lockdown last year. So he's been with us for almost a year. He's rejoining Virginia Tech after 10 years in Ireland, running the Connect Center. He is a wireless security expert and a wonderful person to work for. And so we're very excited. And he's going to talk a little bit more about CCI and our mission. Luiz?
Thank you very much, Sarah, and welcome everyone. Good morning. I'm going to share some slides. So again, good morning, Sarah. Thank you for the wonderful introduction and the kind words about me. So I joined CCI in March of last year as the executive director, and I really couldn't be more pleased that we're here all together, about 200 people in this first internship fair that we're running. So I just wanted to say a few words about CCI and about what we aim to accomplish today. Sarah has already basically explained the basic purpose of CCI. So we are funded by the government of Virginia, and then we use that as core funding, which we expand with additional grants from industry, from government, etc. And our vision is to establish Virginia as the global leader and the global center of excellence in cybersecurity. And by doing that, to serve as a catalyst for economic diversity and long-term leadership in the Commonwealth. So we are currently more than 300 researchers and faculty members in 39 institutions of higher education across Virginia. So many of you, the students who are participating today, come from a wide variety of these universities and community colleges throughout the state. We started working around mid-2019, so we're about a year and a half old. So the area that we focus on is the intersection between security, autonomous systems, and data, including artificial intelligence. And the reason for doing that is that we think that we are facing a major change in the world with the advent of all these cyber physical systems, robots and drones and autonomous vehicles and so on, interacting with us every day. So that opens up a number of questions around security, around the artificial intelligence algorithms that power all of these systems, and about how these autonomous systems are actually going to behave and interact with us every day. So we focus on this area, and we have three mission lines. The first one is research. So professors and graduate students primarily working in all of these universities and colleges, trying to advance the state of the art in cybersecurity, autonomy, and data. And then from research stems innovation. So we have new patents, startups that are generated from all these new findings and so on. And the third mission line is talent development. And that's really the one that we're focusing on today. So how do we help form a well-qualified and diverse workforce for the states and for the country? But as Sarah said, hopefully we'll keep most of you in Virginia. So once you graduate, for those of you who are students, the good news is that you're going to face a job market that is really clamoring for your talent, right? So that is true nationwide. So there's an extremely hot job market for cybersecurity in the US, even globally. It's even more true in Virginia. So I periodically check this website, cybersec.org, and as of today, they claim that there are 58,000 open positions in cybersecurity in Virginia alone, which is really astounding. So we want to help increase the supply of cybersecurity professionals and make sure that you all are particularly qualified to get some of these best positions among the 58,000 that are available today. Sarah already pointed out to our URL, cyberinitiative.org, and I also encourage you to check that out every once in a while because we have news, events, etc., that may be of interest. So what I hope that we accomplish today is that we inform everyone and discuss the benefits and the expectations of cyber internships. So what would you expect out of these internship programs? To tell you about opportunities that exist for internships that are available through CCI and through our partners. And today we're lucky to have many of our partners joining us. Some of our technical advisory board members, some of our academic partners from government and industry. And they'll be telling you more about these internships in the panel. And then to connect you through these breakout rooms and discussions with some of these industry, government, and academic representatives. So again, welcome everyone. We have a wonderful group of students from all of these universities and colleges. I hope that I didn't leave anyone out here. But so we have students from all over Virginia. You're all part of CCI, whether you know it or not, and we very much care about your success. So I hope we have a productive morning. Thank you again to Sarah and Kendall and others in CCI who helped put this together, and to all our partners who are going to participate in the panel and in the breakout rooms. So Sarah, back to you.
And again, thank you everybody for joining. I will now introduce the panelists on our information leadership panel. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Jennifer Jones is the Student Programs Manager from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. She's one of our panelists. Also, we have from the Acceleration Center, Steve Cooper, who's the CEO and founder. From MITRE, we have Dan Woolley from Strategic Partnerships and Programs. From Qualcomm Government Technologies, we have Jim Mollenkopf, as Vice President of Strategic Development. From the Virginia Space Grant Consortium and the Commonwealth STEM Industry Internship Program, we have Debbie Murray. And then from Cyber Startups, a pilot program for novel experiential learning out of George Mason University in Marymount, we have Giselle Stoltz and Diane Murphy. Some of those representatives will also have extra folks on hand with them when they are in the breakout rooms. So you'll see kind of multiple representatives from each organization in those breakout rooms, but those are pretty much the main panelists today. So without further ado, have some questions that I hope will be informative. And I am going to put our speakers a little bit on the spot because they don't know yet which question they're getting, but I think they're all going to be well prepared. So actually, Giselle and Debbie, this first question is for you both, if you could take in turns answering. So we know that applying for internships can be an overwhelming process. What advice would you give students applying for their first internship?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you. You're right. Applying for an internship can be very overwhelming. What I would recommend that you do is I suggest to all of our students, make sure that you're prepared when you submit your application. You want to make sure that, I mean, some of this is just basic common sense. And I know that with being in college, you're taking workshops or classes or coursework on how to do resumes, how to do interviews. You want to make sure that when you upload your resume that, you know, you're being very grammatically correct and everything like that. Companies are going to be looking not only at your application, but they're going to be looking to see how you will represent their company. And if you can't communicate well in a written fashion, then they will assume you may not be able to write well, to speak well in a verbal fashion. So as basic as that sounds, that's very important. I would also say making sure that when you select your recommendations or your references for recommendations, that you choose wisely. People that review your applications can tell if there's someone that's just looked at your resume and put together a recommendation versus, you know, knowing your soft skills, knowing your leadership skills, knowing how you've interacted in their classroom. Have you taken time to visit them in office hours, not just to talk about work, but to see who their contacts are and network with them? So those are just two areas. There are a lot of areas that can help. I'm happy to answer the questions offline too, but I hope that's helpful to you.
Okay. All right. So thanks, Sarah. So I would, having gone just through 145 student applications for the program that we are running here at George Mason, and sharing that information with the companies that are actually looking to hire interns, I could say that some of the things that companies are looking for and that you should really emphasize, and it shouldn't be buried right at the bottom of your CV, is start off with your demonstrated skills. If you have some skills, just put that right in front. And also look, when you're going to work for a small business or a startup, they don't have a huge amount of bandwidth. So you have to demonstrate pretty soon that you have had that necessary experience. And then you should highlight that when you put your work experience. Don't bury that in between being a lifeguard or working at Giant. It should really be, you know, the relevant skills should be highlighted very clearly. So again, as to reinforce what Debbie says, just make sure that you take a workshop on how to write your CV, because there were so many basic mistakes that were made in the CVs that I received, for example. And I think, you know, these kids would have had a much better chance of going through the first hurdle if somebody had just given him a little bit of guidance on how to present their CVs. So again, don't make mistakes, don't make grammatical mistakes. Don't be too casual, like just put flowers and pinks, and you know, just be much more professional in the way you present yourself. And again, if you have related activities, make sure that the related activities will match what the companies or the startups will be looking for. Again, this isn't a Qualcomm. Usually, if it's a small business, they won't have 6 months or a year to be able to train you. So they have to be able to see that you'll be able to just be, you'll be able to hit the ground running. So just show that very clearly in your skills, in your job experience, and in your outside activities. And that would be work. And also take some classes and prepare your interview skills as well, because you will, even if you're the best technically, if you can't interview well, you will be dinged. All right, so that's about it.
Thank you both. I think all of that advice works in either an in-person or in a virtual environment. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Jim, this next question is for you. In today's COVID climate, the internship landscape has transitioned to virtual. What are some ways your organization or institution has utilized interns with a virtual setting? And are there any future developments on the horizon?
Sure, I'm happy to tackle that. Interns is something that we've a fairly long history with and have a fairly aggressive intern program. We've kept that rolling in a virtual environment and are planning to do that virtual again this summer as well. We certainly are not looking to go ahead and take a break from that. And I think last year, company-wide, we had about 500 interns and about 17 that were in small division that I'm from. Probably one of the biggest things that we were really focused on was how can we enhance that experience and make it as much like in person as possible. Obviously we want to make sure that there's actual project work going on and doing all that. But one of the things that we also hope to expose our interns to is the actual culture of the company. And so we put a fair amount of effort into trying to make sure that we had a lot of interaction with those folks. We actually set up some virtual break rooms where people could actually sort of just drop into when they were not actually working or just needed a break, so they could, whether it was the interns themselves or interns and managers or others, would really be able to sort of interact and get a chance to understand what it was like to actually be part of the company and actually getting work done. At our company, like most, work tends to be done in teams. And so how do you maintain that team environment, even if it's actually virtual, is a fairly important piece. So that's something that we put quite a lot of effort into.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Steve, this next question is for you. Interns can play a vital role within organizations and institutions. Can you share how, even in a virtual environment, interns can contribute to the success of a project or overall?
Well, sure. We love to see our interns taking roles on our client Agile Scrum teams as Scrum Masters. Obviously, they're part of the team from day one, but we find that, even 3-4 weeks in, the students no longer are known as students. They're just participants in the project along with our clients. And along with us, of course. So we love to see them taking on roles as Scrum Master. And now that COVID has hit, there is a silver lining, and that is everybody's remote. So there's no problem with you turning over your Scrum team or the Scrum Master role to a senior or a junior from Virginia Tech or Radford who's in our acceleration program. That's one way to do it. Another way is, we constantly have either Zoom sessions and or Slack sessions that are going on all day long. And our program, our internship program at Acceleration, is a year-round program. So you see the students contributing to the dialogue about, what should we work on next? Who's going to take this item off the backlog? Who's going to QA test this? All of these conversations are happening in real time during the interns' shifts year-round, and they're happening on Slack or on Zoom. And so we love to see that. And really, intern, ideally you want the title of intern to fade away and for it to just be, hey, we're a team, and Jim, Josh, April, Saeed, and Meghana are all here. Some of them happen to be students at Virginia Tech, but we don't care. We're all contributing. We're all pulling toward the same goal, and we've got a sprint deliverable this Friday, and we're going to do it, and we're going to have a retrospective next Wednesday to talk about what went wrong. And that's what students are doing. They're just fading in, integrating as full-fledged team members.
Thanks, Steve. Jim and Dan, I'd invite you both to maybe comment on that one as well. Just especially in a virtual environment, what's the role that interns can play?
Well, I can jump in from a minor perspective. We engage the interns for all practical purposes almost as if they're a full-time employee. They will be briefing sponsors. They will be working on critical projects. And MITRE has a long history of working with academic institutions all over the United States. So we engage at multiple levels. So we can expect a cybersecurity intern to to actually be engaging in vulnerability infrastructure. So they'll be working with many of our federal sponsors. They will be doing, more than likely, involved with reverse engineering tools, deep analysis. MITRE, it was interesting, and I'll talk about this just for a moment. MITRE saw what was coming up with COVID last January. And we sent everybody home for 3 days and had everybody work with every piece of technology we had. And the estimate was we were probably going to break the network because we didn't think our network was going to be, substantial enough to handle the massive stuff that we do. And we did. We broke the network. MITRE then spent the entire month of February rebuilding the entire net, redeploying software, redeploying cameras, redeploying everything. And when the decision was made to move us out and back to the home domiciles on the 13th of March, we moved into a complete virtual environment. So when we talk about our interns, they become part of that network. And I live on, whether it's right, wrong, or different, I live on Zooms and Microsoft team meetings from 7:30 in the morning until whenever we finish in the evening. There's a lot of interaction that goes on, and we're very much a team-oriented operation. So when we bring an intern in, and we will be bringing in between 500 and 600 of them this year, they will be engaging across all sponsor projects. And there's, I'm guessing, probably 60 or so that will be specifically dedicated, maybe a larger number, specifically to cyber, because that is a major piece of MITRE's operational business. Jim, over to you.
Yeah, I think if I can sort of echo, I think what Steve and Dan have both said, real work. I mean, this is not, something that is being made up. This is work we need done. This is work that is important. And quite frankly, it is work that we want to build on top of even after you go back to school. So it's something that we're going to incorporate into our flow, into our tools, into our development. This is real substantive stuff. So that's what we're looking for. That's what we're counting on folks to be able to do. And so obviously we want to be able to go ahead and make sure you have the support to be able to do that well. But it is, that's exactly what we are looking and what we expect you to be able to do.
And I'd like to do one quick thing with MITRE too. We're looking for interns in McLean, Fort Meade, Gaithersburg, San Diego, Huntsville, Bedford, Massachusetts, San Antonio, Texas, Aberdeen, Maryland, Colorado Springs. So our interns can be from any location. And because we operate truly in a virtual environment, we're looking at integrating our cyber interns into any of the programs running in any of those locations. So we also do a program, which is, I think Jim indicated as well, we do a rolling program. It is 12 months over the year. And so we're bringing people in and interns throughout the year to be able to engage in these programs. It's not just a summer program. So I think it's important to think through that part of the model as well. Over to you, Sarah.
Great, thank you all so much. So I think, what we can see is that it's that interns play an incredibly vital role, because I think there's a lot of companies out there that treat interns not just as interns, right, but as potential future employees, and if interns behave in that way, then I think that it becomes a win-win situation for everybody, right? The ideal is, of course, not just that the label intern goes away during one's internship, but that it goes away because it gets replaced with employee. That's, I think, probably the ideal outcome for everybody here. And thank you. Dan, this question actually kind of goes back to you. What education and skills are you looking for in your program, and what type of projects should interns expect during their time in your program? I think you started to touch on this, but maybe if you could give us a little bit more.
Sure. And I would encourage people, if you have a chance, take a look at the MITRE career site. There is a dedicated site solely to our cybersecurity intern programs. So if you're really interested in what we're doing, spend a little time on that. I'm going to come back to your first question, and then I'll hitch on this. Know where you want to go. Don't just do a blanket thing. Target where you want to go. We're going to have roughly, I was talking with the intern team a couple of days ago, they've got over 12,000 applications right now. So unless you stand out and you tell us what you're going to do, you explain how you're going to do it, you tell me what you bring to the table, we will be able to better place you. So again, you're competing just as if you do in a normal environment. And you know, we're looking for people with a computer science background, cybersecurity related disciplines first, basic knowledge of cybersecurity principles, tools, devices. Most of you get that when you're there. Experience in working in design, recovery software, understand proficiency technologies. You know, having a background in Java, Python, XML, HTML, C objectives, database, cyber related technologies. You're going to be brought into the game really fast. And when you come into the staff, you're going to be an integral part of the team, and they're going to have you work. So bring your skills to the table. I'm a cybersecurity guy. I've been in this industry for 40 years, and I've run and taken cybersecurity companies public. So I'm always looking for people that are ready to hit the ground running, and at MITRE, our interns will do that. You know, you asked the question, what types of things would you be working on? If we look at some of our sponsors' projects, building next generation reverse engineering, working in power supply and fault vulnerabilities, looking on Windows events and triggering events inside cybersecurity. I mean, if you think back historically in this industry, when you hear the term Kerberos, it was MITRE that created it. When you look at the attack framework, it's being adopted by technology companies and industry companies across the board. That's MITRE's. We're developing the next generation of technologies that help people. That's what our business is about. I mean, we're in the business of improving this world, and cybersecurity is a major element of that.
Thanks,
Over
Dan.
to you.
I'm gonna ask that almost all of our speakers jump in on this one, because I think this is a really crucial question. So Jim?
Well, you know, from a sort of a skill set majors perspective, we are looking for sort of CS, CE, EE folks that can do software. Really, the types of experiences, the types of things they're going to be working on are, you know, areas in embedded systems, wireless technology, security, obviously, communications, networking, really anything sort of at that nexus between sort of computing and communications, being able to take that mobile. It's a wide variety of projects. Last summer on our sort of intern projects, we had people working on, you know, adaptive radio waveforms so that they can actually sort of find spots in open electromagnetic spectrum. We had people doing video detection using machine learning. We had people doing advanced emulation of actual hardware platforms. It's a fairly wide array of projects, and you know, people that have an interest in those areas, or that can actually take those sort of software skills that they have, the language skills that they have, and be able to apply that. That's exactly what we're looking for. And I'll hand that over to whoever's next.
I'd love to hear from Jennifer Jones from CISA.
Hey, good morning. My name is Jennifer Jones, Student Programs Manager at CISA, and we are looking for interns that are interested in cybersecurity with like a computer science, cybersecurity background, looking for those type of degrees or certifications. And our interns are looking at putting them onto a team, or recruiting that they would be part of a team, not just an intern, they'd be incorporated into what the teams are doing. So we look at cyber operations and threat hunting. So we look at being like the risk advisor and sharing information. We have a watch floor that's manned 24/7. So they're constantly monitoring for cyber and other threats to our nation's critical infrastructure. They look at the incident response teams, kind of looking at what incident happened, how are they going to what did the adversary take? What organization do we need to mitigate any vulnerabilities? And then the million-dollar question, why did this happen? And kind of gather that information, kind of present on what the incident was and what we're going to do for the future. Other parts of our internships, they look at federal network protection, kind of working to support the .gov domain. We look at cybersecurity training and exercises, so do tabletop exercises and look at you know, what we can do to plan for upcoming events and response to any kind of incidences. And then we also have cybersecurity education, outreach, and awareness. So we kind of work on almost policy for cybersecurity and help outreach to K through 12 to get people interested in cybersecurity, and then hope that brings you into the undergrad, graduate domain as well, so that we can help, spread that news, get people excited about it early on, and then hopefully, develop you as you get into your degrees and then coming to work for us full time.
Fantastic, thank you. I'd like to also open this question up to our other panelists. So Debbie, if you could maybe talk a little bit about, I recognize that for your program, you're looking at a pretty broad range because of just the number of employers that you might work with, but interested in some of the skills and education that you're looking for.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So for those of you that aren't familiar with our CCIP program, it's the Commonwealth STEM Industry Internship Program. And so we invite undergraduate students that are pursuing a STEM major to register with our site. And because we are all things STEM, obviously that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in all areas. We are starting to dip into the health side, and we do have several opportunities for those pursuing cybersecurity or something related to cybersecurity. Being a part of the CCI initiative, I do have some subsidies that can assist companies with the cost of interns. And basically, we are looking for students that are preferably at their sophomore level forward, but we would welcome your application at any point. CCIP.org, CSIIP.org is where you would apply, as well as where companies would register. And all of the advice that you've been given with this, when you look at the application, you just want to put your best foot forward with it. But particularly in some of these fields, if you are a junior or a senior, particularly with cybersecurity, and those that are pursuing different certifications as well. One of the things based on a DACM that was done that we learned from senior managers with cyber companies is that many times when they hire someone fresh out with a cybersecurity degree, they may not have all the certifications that you would think they would graduate with. So the company spends the first 6 months helping them get their cybersecurity certifications, as well as any security clearances. So anytime you have an opportunity to get any additional cybersecurity, or whether you're in engineering, mechatronics, or MATLAB, anything that would be relevant to your major in STEM that may not be a part of your curriculum, be proactive and go after that. And that can always help you, maybe put you a notch ahead of consideration for another student.
Steve, over to you. Question, the skills and education that you are looking for.
Sure. Well, let me give you an example. The Peace Corps came to Acceleration and said, can you help us re-engineer the back end of our applicant portal to double applications? They want more volunteers applying to become Peace Corps volunteers to help the world. So what does it take to do that? Well, I'll give you 2 skills that we look for. One is a passion for technology. And as a student, how can you show that? Have you built something? What have you built outside of class, outside of a required deliverable? What have you built? And it could be a game, it could be an app, it could be a team that you worked on, anything, summer job, anything in technology. Do you have a passion for technology that caused you to say, you know what, I love to spend my after time, my free time, building something cool in technology? And it doesn't have to be professional. It could be a recipe organizer for your grandmother. It could be a neighborhood app to help you clean up the neighborhood. Doesn't matter. It could be a video game. But we're looking for a passion for technology, because we know if we plug you into our acceleration team at Peace Corps, you're going to deliver some creative ideas. The second thing we look for is collaborative teamwork and abilities, because we know that there are going to be stakeholders in that Peace Corps environment. There's a design firm involved as well, full of creatives, and they're all going to be saying to you, why didn't you build it this way? Why didn't you focus on this feature first? What can you do differently? And that's tough. That's a crucible. And you have to be able to answer those questions with poise and with grace. And sometimes you have to learn when to keep your mouth shut, because this client is going off on you. All of those people skills are as important as your tech skills. So to the extent that you can demonstrate that, hey, maybe you don't know everything yet, but you have the ability to distinguish when to speak, when to relate, what this client needs to hear, and when your colleagues need to lead you and what you can learn from them. If you can do that and show us that A, you've got a passion for technology, and B, you've got collaborative teamwork abilities, then we can work with you and make you into a world-class software developer at Acceleration. That's what we look for.
Fantastic, thank you. And Giselle, if you want to pipe in on education or skills that you were searching for on behalf of the companies.
Right. So here we focused a lot on the technical skills for in cybersecurity, but I would say that among the companies that we work with in our business incubators, you also need other things as well. And I think small businesses and startups need to grow, and they grow by getting clients. And so to be able to help the boss get new clients and those skills, the sales and the follow-up skills to interact with clients is also very important. So these are part of the soft skills that we haven't really talked about. We have talked about, but again, you know, that is also very important. And you know, in a small business, like I work for a tech startup as well, you have to be prepared to do everything. And you have to be able to do marketing, you have to be able to do social media, you have to be able to take sales calls, you have to do tech stuff, and you have to be able to assist the founder with everything. If it's just a team of 3 or 4 people, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm only going to do programming and that's it. You cannot have that sort of attitude. So I think that's probably something that I would insist on as well.
Fantastic, thank you. I've got one more stock question here that I'm going to ask, and I'm going to point this question at Jen from CISA, and then I'm going to address a few of the questions that are popping up here in the chat box, and then of course when we go into our breakout sessions, you'll be able to ask those questions directly to some of these speakers as well. So if you didn't get your question answered and maybe it's specific, you know, feel free to hang on to it and ask it at a later time, later during this session. So Jennifer, with privacy and security being top priorities in today's climate, what are the biggest mistakes agencies are making? And what are some impressive strategies you've seen others implement with internships that have helped achieve their mission?
So great question. Yes, privacy and security are a major issue. And we have, you know, we're dedicated to being the risk manager for the nation, looking at what type of risks are out there, how to mitigate them, what vulnerabilities are out there, what we can do as an agency, and how we can work with partners, private and public sector, to make sure that we are, you know, being where we can and making sure that things are secure. And so with our internships, right now we're working remote as everyone else is. And so what we do is we have strict protocols on how we're bringing students on board, how we're getting them the equipment that they need, the access to systems that they need, and then making sure that they have the correct security clearances, they go through the correct processes, and then making sure that we are just getting them what they need to do to, you know, succeed in their internship, but also making sure that it's a safe environment for them. Our internships last summer, we didn't have any security incidences. And so that was great. And we're just making sure that we continue to do that throughout the school year and then next summer as well. We'll be continuing to work remote and continuing to, you know, like look at the systems, look at the programs that we're using to make sure that we are doing what we can to mitigate any risk, and then making sure that we are just, you know, moving forward in the right direction. So our interns have been safe. They feel pretty secure and safe, and they're getting the right security clearances that they need, the right equipment that they need. And then we're just going to keep doing that until, you know, things kind of go back a little bit to normal and we can go back into the office.
I think everybody's trying to balance that right now. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm going to take a couple of the questions from the chat box here, and I'll just kind of let any of the panelists that want to take this to feel free to answer. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I think we've got plenty of time here. Somebody asked about F1 CPT status students. Are they eligible to apply for internships? I imagine that question kind of differs based on the program. So I'll let a few of you answer.
Well, at Acceleration, we are happy to take citizens and non-citizens. Occasionally, we have some federal work, and on those, we must have only our citizen interns serve, but most of our projects don't have that requirement.
You know, at MITRE, our focus really is solving meaningful work on the most important challenges to the federal government. And I want to address it in 2 points. First is we'll take interns from just about any place to work on various projects, because a lot of the projects we have are not classified, okay? And they don't require a security clearance, nor do we really expect an intern who's coming in for 3 months to be able to go through all the hoops to get a security clearance. You know, having been in the Air Force for many years, I know how long it takes to get clearances. So we know that we're going to get kids that don't have degrees. We're going to have students that don't have all the certifications, but they've got lots of cool skills, and those skills can be applied to meaningful work. Again, MITRE's a nonprofit. We have no commercial entity. We do not sell product. We tackle big problems, and we bring people together to team around solving really big, serious problems that the federal government is facing. And so we'll take people that have all sorts of skill sets. And Giselle mentioned the soft skills. You're going to pick up a lot of those, because if you're working with sponsors, if you're working with various people that we're involved with, you know, when I joined MITRE, I kind of laughed. I've never seen so many PhDs per square inch in my whole life. And so you have a lot of exposure to really bright people thinking about really bright things. We have a program inside MITRE called the MITRE Information or MITRE Institute, where they give up ideas and everybody comes up with ideas. And they put it in this huge things, and then we fund it internally and we work on it. We had over 700 new ideas last year, and there were over 300 that were in the area of cybersecurity. So we're looking for ideas. We're looking for people who really have an interest. They don't have to have a security clearance. They may not have, they may not be U.S. citizens, because we can put them onto various projects. So it's a really exciting time to take on some really cool things. Over to you.
Dan, thanks for that. I think you answered a couple of questions that were popping up in the chat box about international students applying for internships as well. And somebody asked about the process of getting a security clearance. And I'll just say that, as Dan mentioned, it's an incredibly lengthy process. I think COVID has made that an even more arduous process than it already is. And, you know, anybody can step in and correct me here or offer different advice. But typically with security clearances, they're going to be something that you go through with your employer. You know, if they start to require that and you don't have that yet, again, it's not usually considered a requirement for a recent graduate to have a security clearance. It is challenging. And so usually an employer, if they require that, they walk you through that process. But it looks like Jennifer might have an answer to that question as well. So I'm going to let her step in, seeing as how she actually works for the government.
Thanks. So yes, you do not need a clearance to apply to a position if you are selected for a position. We will work with you to get through the security process. So most of our interns that come on board that work in cybersecurity will have a secret clearance or an interim secret. And we are seeing on average, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for the whole clearance from start to finish to occur. So we submitted some folks back in the end of December, and they're just clearing now. So it takes a few weeks to receive an interim or secret, and you can come on board with an interim or secret for your internship. If it's a top secret, then that takes a little bit longer, but there has been horror stories about how long that takes. It just depends on each individual, but usually it will take probably about 4 to 6 months. That's what it should take. But usually for our internships, it's a secret clearance. And so we can get those clearances pretty quickly within at least a couple weeks. So it's not an arduous, don't be put off by that. If you're interested in a position that says you will have to get a secret clearance, don't stress about it. You know, we'll work with you, you get the paperwork through, and don't be stressed out about it. But we will not require you to have it before applying. But if you are selected, then we can work with you to get that clearance.
Let me add one thing to that, only for a side thing. When you look at MITRE, we run 7 federally funded research development centers. Some are in healthcare, some are in cyber, some are in aviation, some are in automotive, but we cover a whole range of things, and security plugs into almost every one of these. But if you're looking for an internship in healthcare, we maintain a massive healthcare program. And if you happen to be a cybersecurity person that likes that, that can be plugged in as well. So don't feel constrained that maybe some of these entities don't do things other than pure cybersecurity. And just understand there's opportunity out there. I mean, we're hiring over 600 people right now for this year. We're adding people, and we're covering all of these FFRDCs and all this really cool advanced research work. I'm done.
Thanks. I just wanted to add a piece of advice that I received a long time ago was to look up the form that is the form that you would fill out in order to receive an interim or a secret clearance as the young person, to take a look at that as you're an undergraduate and maybe use that as a guiding principle for some of the decisions and choices that you make in your personal and social life as you move forward. It can greatly impact your employability, but if you know what those questions are going to be, then you'll know how you want to answer them. And if this is a career choice for you, a career path for you, it doesn't hurt to be prepared with those things. So take a look at that form. Jennifer, you probably know is it J something? I forget now the numbers.
SF86.
That's the one, the SF86. Thank you, Jen. You can probably Google that and find it and answer those questions internally and let that be a guiding principle for you. Okay, some other questions. Somebody asked about, many of the representatives have spoken about software and cybersecurity roles within various organizations and companies. What can someone with more of a hardware, embedded systems, or electrical engineering do to best present themselves in the cybersecurity industry? Jim, you want to take that?
Pick me. Yeah, absolutely. That is, all those skills are completely relevant. I'm sure you've all heard this somewhere along the line, but cybersecurity is not really a sort of a in its own sort of a standalone thing, right? Security is not something that you bolt on at the end to a product or a system, or if it is something that really needs to be thought of throughout. The ability to think really end to end and look at an entire system is absolutely critical. That's something that even if you are working on a very small piece of something, how does that fit into the overall picture? And especially, in thinking about cybersecurity and product security, et cetera, all of that is really important. People with embedded systems backgrounds, EE backgrounds, hardware backgrounds, really, really critical skills as well. So but by no means is it just software.
Fantastic. Thank you. Just in the interest of time, I want to ask one more question because I think this one is really, really important, particularly with today's climate and conversation. The question is, would a remote internship be looked down upon compared to an in-person internship, or does it necessarily matter? I see everyone shaking their heads from the panel.
During COVID, everything is remote. I've been in solitary confinement for what, 11 months? So yeah, I mean, the chances of being physically inside someplace are really slim. It's not looked at least from our world. It's just a part of doing business.
Yeah, our CEOs are working remotely. So I don't think it's a problem if our interns are.
And I'll add that it's one thing to be able to deliver in our center under the supervision of our mentors physically, but it takes a lot more to be able to deliver from your dorm room, from your home, from the library, code remotely. And so if anything, it may be a feather in your cap that you've been able to succeed and deliver as part of a team in the real work environment remotely. And so I would not discount it. I would actually surplus it.
I have to agree with Steve on that, because with all of course, due to COVID, we had a few companies such as the shipyard and all that didn't offer their internship program last summer, but they've had time to ramp up and they're going to be offering it this summer. But my NASA program, NASA they thought outside the box. They sent a computer to every single intern, which was over 2,000 or 3,000 this past summer, shipped it to their homes along with all the software and hardware needed to do the projects behind the firewall. And so if the student has the discipline, like you're saying, to do the work that's required, you still have the opportunity to work on teams, you still have the opportunity to interact. But like Steve said, it can be a real feather in your cap because you don't have someone right over your shoulder trying to guide you every step of the way. You're going to have to take some initiative to do as much as you can to achieve the same goal you would in person. And sometimes that can be more difficult, but feather in your cap, definitely.
Thank you, everybody. Just as a time mark, it is 11:56. So we will take a quick